Welcome. Today I want to talk to you about a difficult but very important conversation about domestic violence and our justice system. 80% of domestic violence cases are classified as misdemeanors. That bothers me. A burglary can be classified as a felony, but a domestic violence case where the victim is unrecognizable gets classified as a misdemeanor with a maximum sentence of 364 days in jail. So there are several components at work here. Many cases of domestic violence go unreported for several reasons. Often the victim is afraid of the abuser. Sometimes they're afraid of financial reasons. If they have a child with the abuser, they're afraid that if the abuser goes to jail, they will be financially burdened and not able to support themselves, maybe even find themselves homeless if the abuser is the breadwinner. So there's a lot of pressure that happens when the victim is abused. However, it's critical to file a police report and to press criminal charges against the abuser, because otherwise the cycle will continue. The abuser will see the victim as weak and they will continue to abuse them. And chances are the abuse will continue to ramp up in the level of abuse. It will continue to get worse. (93 to 98% of domestic violence cases are resolved through plea bargains, meaning the abuser does not serve time. They get out, they get off, they get by with it. So what is the message there? The message is that they can do it again. They can repeat that behavior. It's not okay. So there are 5 ways to be taken more seriously by the prosecution, by the prosecutor who defends the victim in these cases, that I want to share with you, because I've experienced domestic violence, unfortunately, twice in my life, and I'm talking about physical domestic violence here, not psychological or verbal abuse, but physical domestic violence. And this could be sexual too, if you've ever experienced sexual domestic violence. This falls under this category, but for me it was physical. And the first time I experienced this was, I'll tell you the 2 stories to give you kind of the comparison for how I handled it in each situation. And then I'll tell you the 5 ways that you can strengthen your case. The first time I experienced domestic violence was with my ex-husband many, many years ago. He had never abused me physically. He was a little bit verbally abusive. But he was one to stuff down his emotions. So he didn't process or express his emotions well. And then one day he snapped and he waterboarded me. I won't go into details. I've written about it. If you want to go on to Medium, which is in the link in my bio, you can read my About Me story, and I go into great detail on there. But for the sake of this video, I'll just let you know he waterboarded me. And if you don't know what that is, you can Google it. It is the most horrific form of abuse that any human being can do to another human being. And it It took me several days before I told anyone about it, and then he went out of town for work, and I called my sister, and she knew something was wrong, and she got me legal counsel immediately. We went to court. We got a court order of protection. I did not press charges against him. We had 2 young children at the time. I was terrified. I was overwhelmed. I was in shock. I was scared. And it was too much for me to process at that moment. However, by going to court and getting the court order of protection, the judge was appalled, first of all, with what happened. She said normally the domestic violence escalates and builds. They don't normally see this level, that high level of domestic violence for a first-time offender. He nearly killed me. So she was appalled and took immediate action. So she had him removed from my home, our home. She gave me full custody of the children. She had 2 4-1 kids come out and do a full evaluation, make sure the kids felt safe and okay. She removed his firearms from our home and ordered him to go to anger management classes. About 6 months later, after he completed his anger management, he had continued to call my mom and tell her how much he loved me and how sorry he was. So I agreed to talk with him via email, and I agreed to go to court and have the court order of protection canceled. I allowed him back into the home. I thought it was the best thing to do for both the children and myself. And he seemed like a brand new person. He was learning to process and express his emotions. He was talking more about all of that. And I appreciated that. I wanted us to be a family unit. Unfortunately, the trust could never be repaired. This was a man who tried to kill me and who later admitted that had I not taken action and gotten the court order of protection, he had planned to hang me in our garage. Was going to be the next step. So unfortunately, our marriage did not succeed. I could never get past those thoughts. So every argument we had, I had that fear in the back of my head that he would kill me. So fast forward years and years and years later, about 15 years later, my ex-boyfriend this last June assaulted me, physically beat me up. I had bruises, cuts, lesions all over my body, my hips, my face, my arms, my back, my neck. I had whiplash, I had a concussion, but this time I did call the police. I did press charges. I learned my lesson, and I'm proud of that, actually. So I learned the system better this time, having taken the right measures, and I'm going to share those measures with you. So when I called the police this time, I filed the police report quickly, which I learned was step number 1. File the report quickly. Step number 2, have the police take photos of you, of all of your injuries. So when I called the police, 3 male officers showed up. They then called in a female officer to take me inside and take pictures of me because I needed to get undressed to take some of the pictures. She found pictures on my back of fingerprint marks, and she found the pictures of my neck of his fingerprint marks that I didn't even know I had. I was still in shock. I was unaware. And so I'm very grateful that they took those photos and they filed those photos in conjunction with the report, which is very important. They also advised me to continue to take the photos in the days to come because more bruising was likely to occur, and they were correct. She was absolutely correct. I had a concussion that I was unaware of at that moment that surfaced in the coming days. I had a terrible bruise on my forehead and a knot that came out in the coming days, and those bruises started to show as yellows and greens. Nausea and vomiting started happening in the coming days with that concussion. And so things will continue to happen sometimes that you need to really document and save so that you can continue this evidence trail. It's very important. Don't change your photos, don't Photoshop them at all. That's absolutely critical. The photos must stay in their natural state. But 58 to 67% increase in prosecution rate comes with photos. It's very important for you to understand. The prosecutor will take your case so much more seriously and can help you so much more if there's photo evidence, because he can admit that evidence into the trial for you. Step number 3 is try to find witnesses. If there's anyone that heard your yelling, heard you scream for help, if there's a 911 caller who might have reported your case, if there's a child who saw anything, that will increase your chance of prosecution by 67 to 70%. That's a lot. I'm getting my stats, by the way, from the FBI website on domestic violence episodes, and those are current statistics. This is very serious stuff. Okay, so making an arrest. Filing a report is one thing. Giving approval to the police to go make that arrest will increase your chance of prosecution by 92 to 96% and raises your chance of conviction by 76 to 80%. Yay! Okay, so it's not a grudge that you want this person to go to jail. It's that you want the justice system to prevail so that they don't continue this pattern. They don't continue to harm more people or to escalate in their level of abuse. And finally, the police strongly urged me to go get an emergency court order of protection. I called the police. The abuse happened to me in June on a Saturday night. I called the police first thing on a Sunday morning. I was in shock when it happened. I called the police first thing on a Sunday morning. They urged me, the court was closed Sunday, so they urged me to go to the courthouse on Monday morning, and I went first thing Monday morning, and I filed that court order, emergency court order of protection. By about noon that day, I got a phone call saying that the judge granted the emergency court order of protection. Now, I will warn you, victims, the paperwork was thick. It was emotionally difficult to get through. Take a couple bottles of water with you when you go, because it's difficult. You're gonna need to take care of yourself. Take a granola bar, a couple bottles of water, maybe a bag of potato chips, whatever comforts you. But you're gonna be there for a little while filling out that paperwork. And the water was a lifesaver for me. I wish I had taken more, quite honestly. But it helped tremendously. So filling out an emergency order of protection and getting that from the judge, when the judge grants you that emergency order of protection, it basically is saying he sees enough evidence that he thinks that abuser is guilty. That's basically what that piece of paper says. So when you have that, the prosecutor will take your case 85 to 89% more seriously. And your chances of conviction are about 100%. Recently, oh, by the way, the state will also grant you, if you agree to work with the prosecutor on your case and you're not intimidated by your abuser, or your abuser's lawyer, which happens. They will try to get you to stand down. Don't. Stand up. Take your power back. This is your chance. If you agree to work with the prosecutor, they will assign you an advocate. Your advocate will walk you through the whole process, okay? They're there to help you, and it is very helpful. And they will decide when it's time for you to talk to the prosecutor and give the prosecutor all of your evidence, your point of view, everything that you want to say and have heard. And then they will give you a court-appointed lawyer free of charge. This is the beautiful part. From the domestic violence shelter in the county in which you filed for, that will help you get a permanent court order of protection. And the beautiful part of this is, and a lot of people don't understand this, even if you move out of that state, which I did, that permanent order of protection has reciprocity in most other states. So if your lawyer is able to get that for you, and it's tough, I'm not going to say it's an easy battle, but if there's enough evidence, if you have the photos, if you have witnesses, if you have enough evidence that your defendant is guilty, and that permanent court order of protection is granted, then you can get reciprocity in whichever state you live. So those are my tips today. I hope our justice system prevails. His case, his felony case and a misdemeanor case is still ongoing, but I was granted my permanent court order of protection. And I hope if you are going through a domestic violence case, you stand up for yourself, you stand up against the criminal, and I hope you win and prevail. Please comment, tell me if you've been through domestic violence. I will support you the best that I can. I will give you the resources the best I can to help you defend yourself. And I'd be happy to coach you through the rebuilding stages to rebuild your confidence and help you in any way I can. In case no one has told you yet today, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you to those who have subscribed. If you haven't yet, just hit that button.